The comments heard on The View from a Pew are those of Mac McCoy and are not necessarily the opinions of his guests, his producer Garth, any one particular denomination or religion, the church lady, Mr. Lemke, Pastor Craig, or anyone else of sound mind and body. Now, here is today's The View from a Pew, heard all around the world on YouTube. Just search for The View from a Pew.
Thank you, Emily, and we appreciate you listening. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, no matter what time of day you're watching this or listening to this. This is The View from a Pew. We are live on the 4th of July, which is a tradition for me. I always look for opportunities to have special guests on the 4th of July. People who have maybe served in the military, people who have done wonderful things in their life, and most of all, people who follow Jesus and want to help other people. And that's who my guest is today. His name is Ricky C. Simmons, and he was a former Nebraska football player. And in fact, today, one of your mentors is still Coach Osborne.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
You talk to him all the time.
Yes, I do.
All right, now, this is our last segment here for today. You said something about when you were in high school, you did 5 things to prepare for a game.
Yes.
What were those?
Okay, I would drink 1 Old English 800 malt liquor. I would smoke 2 Redbud Colombian joints. I'd drink a half a bottle of Thunderbird wine, a half a bottle of Robitussin DM cough syrup, and 20 milligrams of Valiums.
Where does the cough medicine come in? High alcohol content?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It was just, I didn't like football.
Yeah.
And that was my way of just blanking everything out. So it's pretty safe to assume I didn't remember anything.
I think that's very interesting. You were very successful in football, but you never liked playing the game.
No.
You did it because your dad, well, you tell the story.
Well, my dad we made a deal when I was in the 5th grade. You play football and I'll get you all these little things you think you have to have. Well, 5th grade was a bicycle.
Yeah.
7th, 8th grade, I realized all females weren't bad. I wanted a girlfriend, didn't know how to talk to them.
All females weren't bad.
Yeah, so I had to. I went out for the junior high football team, got new clothes, and kind of adjusted my walk a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple of girls thought I was cool, so I got a girlfriend. Well, at 16 in Texas, you get a driver's license. I wanted a car.
Yeah.
So I went out for the high school football team.
What kind of car did you buy? I'm just curious.
My dad got me it was in the year of 1977. He got me a 77 Chrysler LeBaron.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a nice car.
Yeah, and then put the fancy rims on it and really nice stereo.
Yeah.
He stayed to his word, so I had to stay in mind, but I didn't want to play football, but I didn't want to quit because then he might take it back.
Right.
So that's when I started the 5-game pre-ritual thing.
And then when you got out of high school, you came to Nebraska because of a scholarship. You wanted to play for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of people don't like that.
Well, that's
but
okay. That's all right.
Yeah, but that was my choice because I was a running back in high school, and I made my living on the edges, outrunning people. In Nebraska, running backs were running up between the tackles, and that wasn't my strong suit.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to go to Oklahoma. It wasn't. I mean, I ain't had nothing against Nebraska. Actually, I didn't know anything about Nebraska.
You wanted to play the wishbone.
I wanted to play the wishbone. That's all it was. If I got to play.
Yeah. So you graduate from college and you get an opportunity to go to the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, well, I went to the USFL first.
Right, and they folded.
They folded after 2 seasons.
Then you went to the Falcons, and tell that story. That's a great story.
When I got to the Atlanta Falcons, I came in with a lot of hype and a big contract, and they were going to make me the man, but I had developed a cocaine addiction in the USFL. So when I got to Atlanta, I was doing drugs, but nobody knew it. But Wednesday night, before my first game in Atlanta, I was doing drugs, and cocaine convinced me that football was getting in the way of my using. And I agreed with the cocaine. So Thursday morning, I went into the Atlanta Falcons head coach's office and told him I quit. And they were like, "Oh, little Cornhusker, go get dressed. We're going to feature you Sunday against the Saints." I'm like, "Okay." But I never went and got dressed. I left the facility.
Never came back.
Never came back. And after I missed a couple days of practice and missed a game, then they released me on that Monday. And then I went on a 25-year cocaine binge.
And that binge was part of Nebraska also, right? Or
What?
did you live? No, you moved to Texas.
I moved back to Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as time went on, how did you make a living then?
Well, like I said, first 5 years, I didn't have really worry about money at all because I never spent money on drugs. All my money from football, the guy that I was using with, he paid for everything. Wouldn't let me pay for nothing. So I got to save all my money. And then my parents were both well off. You know, we had like 10 rental properties. They were both school teachers with master's degrees. They had just retired. We just had, we had resources. So I never had to worry about money.
Did your mom and dad know of your habit?
Yeah, they knew. Because, I mean, I'm from a small town, like I said, 30 minutes east of Dallas. It's one high school town. I mean, everybody in the town was like telling them, man, we saw Ricky over here. We saw Ricky over there, you know, and all these places they saw me were drug-related areas.
Yeah. And so you continue your drug use, but then your mom and dad got ill, and you decided that you were going to take care of them.
Yeah, well, in 2000, I guess it was 2003 or 4, I was back in Lincoln, and I would call home every morning.
Okay.
7 o'clock. And one morning I called home and my dad answered the phone and I was like, what's going on, big man? He's like, well, I'm making some coffee for me and your mama. And I was like, Dad, you don't sound like yourself. What's wrong? He said, son, I think I need you. So I was like, next day I drove from Lincoln to Greenville, Texas. And we were talking and he was like, son, I don't think I can maintain everything anymore. You know, the rental properties, you know, being a landlord, you know, he just couldn't manage stuff. He was like 80 plus at that time. And my mom was having, she became a diabetic and she was having dementia issues. So it was like, it was just too much for him. So I moved back to Texas, even though I wasn't healthy. I moved back and I took care of all their stuff for like all of end of 2003, all of 2004, and 2005. Well, in 2006, I put them to bed one night, and I was in my room doing what I do because I got to stay up all night, you know, because
doing cocaine.
Yeah, I'm doing cocaine because I got to stay up all night and I'm not making excuses. I'm just being honest with people. I was doing this because I had promised Adult Protective Services that I would provide them 24-hour care. So if they ring the doorbell at 3 in the morning, we all asleep, they're going to put my parents somewhere, and they had made it very clear that they didn't want to go nowhere.
Yeah.
So I was doing doing cocaine, and I heard this clanking noise coming up the hall. And we had a really large house. They were back in this section. I was way up in my section. And my dad got outside my door, and he yelled like he did 40 years ago. It was like, Ricky! Scared me to death. Because I'm like, man, I'm in here doing cocaine. You know, I ran out in the hallway. I'm like, what's going on, big man? He said, boy, I need you to promise me 3 things. I'm like, okay. No, say you promise. I said, I promise, Dad. He said, son, don't you never give up. I said, okay, Dad, I won't give up, because he knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then the second thing he said was, son, you're going to put God in your life at some point. And I'm like, Dad, it won't be tonight, but I will at some point. And then he said, that's fair enough. And then he said, the last thing ain't got nothing to do with nothing but me, Ricky. He said, every day you blessed to see, you get up and you look like somebody, and you do that for me, Ricky. And he clanked back to his bed, and the next day he had a stroke. He never spoke to me again.
Wow.
So that was my last, and that
from God.
That was his last assignment.
Now, did you go to church when you were a kid?
I went with my mother. My dad wasn't a real big church guy. Actually, they both went to 2 separate churches next door to each other. I didn't never understand that. But I went with my mom, you know, because she basically made me go. But I've never been a real religious person. I just believed, you know. And so when they asked me to do stuff, I just did it because I felt like it was in my heart. It was the right thing to do because I know they cared for me.
Yeah.
And like I shared, you know, with you earlier was first 4 days of life, my name was John Doe.
Yeah.
So, you know, that
you were adopted.
That meant a lot to me. I mean, my biologicals left me in the hospital, and these 2 people, 2 strangers, showed up and took me in and raised me with their name. I can never repay them for that.
Well, but you were a very good son.
Well, I
Forget cocaine. And
yeah,
you went to prison. You were still a good
I
son.
tried. I mean, I made some mistakes,
Yeah.
and that's kind of leads me into what I do now. I
Yeah.
mean, I've dedicated the rest of my life, whatever time I may have left, to making my parents in heaven proud of me.
Yeah, good for you.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that happened to you in prison was you learned to play chess.
Yeah, I'm a terrible chess player to this day. I'm still not very good, but I was playing with this guy. He was an inmate, and he taught me how to play. And after he showed me how to play, he's like, the only way I can play with you now is I just beat you until you get tired of getting beaten, and you'll figure it out. So we were playing, and for 6 months, he was correct. I didn't win a game.
You play every day?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. I mean, as many times as possible.
Yeah.
Well, the one day I actually won a game, you'd have thought I made parole or hit the lottery. I was all excited. Like, yes, where you from, dude? He's like, I'm from Omaha. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm from Texas, but I live in Lincoln. When you get out and I get out, I'm going to drive down to Omaha with my chessboard, and I'm going to beat you again. And he looked at me, and he said, that will never happen, Ricky. And I was like, I'll tell you what, set him up right now, and I'll go up to my cell and get some coffee. I'll be right back, and I'll beat you again today. He said, okay. So he started setting the pieces up. I went to my cell. Well, when I got to my cell, my cellmate was like, yo, you know that guy you play chess with? I'm like, yeah, what about him? He goes, you know why he's here? I'm like, I don't care why he's here. I'm not doing his time. I'm doing my time. Well, he goes, you might want to read about him. And he gave me this Omaha World Herald and a picture of my chess partner. And I'm kind of summarizing here, but he was doing cocaine with a female, and they ran out of drugs. He gave her the money to go get more, and she didn't come back. And the next day, he saw the lady that ran off with his money and her teenage daughter, and I guess he poured gasoline on them and set them on fire, killed them both.
He poured gasoline on the mother and the daughter and set them on fire.
Yeah.
And they died.
Yeah, that's why he said I'd never beat him in Omaha, because he's doing double life plus 300 years.
Wow.
But at that moment, here comes this little guard that I told you about that picked on me all the time.
Yeah, call you little cornhusker.
Yeah, no, his words was, what's up, inmate Simmons, former Husker superstar? And I was like, dude, I'm going to get you today, because I'm tired of you. And I just heard this bad news about my chess partner. You know what? Today you win with me. And I was going to do something to this guard that probably would still have me in prison to this day. Wow. And he had a letter in his hand. And he threw the letter on the floor and just took off down the runway. And instead of chasing him, I stopped to pick up this letter. And I know I wasn't getting mail, so I didn't even understand why I stopped. But now I know it was God. When I picked the letter up and I was going to put it on my cellie's bunk because he was getting mail on a regular basis, I looked at it and it had a big red N in the corner, and it was from the Nebraska Athletic Department, and it was addressed to me. And man, I was immediately embarrassed. So a couple of minutes went by and I finally opened it up, and it was only a paragraph. It said, "Dear Ricky, I know your parents believed in you. I believe in you, and up on your release, if there's anything I can do to help you, feel free to contact me." And it was signed Tom Osborne. Wow. And right then and there in my prison cell, I fell on my knees and I turned my life over to Christ. And when I got up, my thinking started changing. And
yep, Holy Spirit will do that to you.
And 15 years and counting. But as of this past June 4th, was like about a month ago, I celebrated 15 years clean and sober.
Yeah. And you have maintained a relationship with Coach Osborne.
Once a week for the last 15 years.
Yeah. And he's always there for you.
He's always there for me. If I can't catch him in his office, because that guy still moves around pretty good.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, so if I can't catch him, I got his personal cell number, so I'll call him.
Now, do you have anything to do with the athletic department now?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I wish them the best, and I'm a fan. I want them to do well, but I don't go around. I just focus on what I'm doing, which is my radio show on Sunday nights, and also traveling the country to do, speaking engagements to all different people.
By the way, if you want to hear that radio show, it's 8 to 9 on Sundays. And it's on a radio station, a local radio station down in Lincoln, and it's 93.7 The Ticket. And I would imagine you could go online.
You can watch it on Facebook. They have a page. It's on YouTube. They have a page. Twitch. They got so many different platforms that I'm not even familiar with, but yeah, I think we also have 2 Allo channels, so you can, it can be shown all over Western Nebraska too.
Yeah.
And I got friends that watch from Germany. I mean, it's a global show. So
I've got a man who I've never met, but I feel like he's truly a brother of mine. His name is Moses.
Okay.
And he's in Nigeria.
Okay.
And he'll listen to my podcast, and I'll get emails from him, and he'll tell me about what he learned on the show, and then he goes and tells it to his community because they don't have Jesus around there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
no missionaries or anything. So,
Well,
well, Ricky, thank you.
I would like to add one last thing if I could.
Yes, time is yours.
Yeah, I have a 501c3.
Yep.
It's called RCS Triumph Inc. And I take in donations that people can deduct when they do their taxes. But my foundation, the reason why I ask for donations is because a lot of places around the country want me to come, but they don't have the ability to pay me. So if you're interested in donating, I would really appreciate it. It's rickycsimmons.com/donate. It'll take you right to the page, to the web.
It's a 501c3, and of course, that's tax deductible.
Correct.
There was another thing you said to me that I just want to mention. You said that you had 8-day work weeks and 30-hour days.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you was asking me a question about other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And my response to you was, I need an 8-day week and a 30-hour day just to deal with Ricky, which doesn't give me a lot of time to play God and try to judge others.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and you and I have that in common. Yeah. At least I try hard. It's just not my place to judge people.
No.
Now, I have a friend of mine back in Des Moines, and he always says, I don't judge, but I am a fruit inspector. And that's his excuse to talk about someone's lack of or their fruit.
Right.
But it's a lot better just loving Jesus and sharing that. And
yes.
No more.
And I believe in God. I'm not a pastor. I'm a speaker.
Yeah.
And I try to make that clear with everybody because I go where I need to go. I use a lot of humor when I speak, but I'm not playing. It's just my way of getting people to actually retain what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time I have like 4 different presentation styles. One's G-rated, which is for church. I have a PG for the schools. I have an R for treatment centers, and I have an X for prison.
Wow.
So I go wherever I have to go to reach my audience.
Do you still go back into prisons?
Absolutely.
Every time?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I think I've met some of the most intelligent people that I know that have been to prison.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give up on people because no one gave up on me.
Well, and you were never put in prison for hurting another person.
No.
You were just drugs and alcohol.
I'm an addict.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my deal is.
Well, thanks for recognizing that and having, what'd you say, 15 years sober?
Yep, 15 years sober a month ago today.
Yeah, and for those of you listening, I also had an alcohol issue at one time in my life, and I've got several years sober. And it's hard to get sober because we live in a world that wants us drunk.
Correct.
They want us using.
Yeah.
The devil wants us to use.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I do what I do. I mean, I'm not saying I can save the world, but it won't be from a lack of trying.
Right. All right. Ricky C. Simmons, thank you very much for spending this day with us here on this 4th of July. And I think I told you earlier, I always have a special guest on the 4th of July, and you're right up there with him. So God bless you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for having me.
Also want to thank my national sponsors, Divine Foods, Stores.com. Anything you need, check them out. Thanks